Hi all, I'm Sagar. So today we are going to continue our RHCSA journey of 60 powered pack questions on RHEL 10. So today we are going to see our question number second, which is on NFS and AutoFS. So we are going to configure a NFS server and we are going to share the public directory present on the NFS server to our NFS client using the AutoFS feature. So this AutoFS feature will automatically mount or unmount your NFS shared directory present in your NFS server. Before directly jumping into the practical or our Linux machine, let's just first understand what NFS and AutoFS is. So NFS is a file system protocol that allows a client to access the files on the remote server as over a network if these files are located on client storage. What does this mean? Suppose you have NFS server and NFS client present in your environment. There is a shared directory, NFS public shared directory created on your NFS server, which you are going to share with your NFS client over the network using the NFS protocol. Once this directory is successfully shared with your NFS client, then any file you are going to create on the NFS server will automatically appear on the NFS client. This directory is looking like or appears that it is locally stored or locally present in your NFS client, but actually it is present on your NFS server, and using the NFS protocol we have shared it with the NFS client. Suppose there is a user Sam present in the NFS client machine and he also creates a file on NFS client. This file will also be visible or moved, not moved. This file also will be visible on your NFS server at the same time once the Sam creates the file on the NFS client. So this is the network file sharing. Let's just see what AutoFS is. AutoFS is a Linux service that automatically mounts file system when accessed and unmounts them after being idle. So how AutoFS works or what AutoFS is, let's just understand. Again, you have NFS server and NFS client present in your environment, and there is a shared directory which later we are going to share with your NFS client machine. And once this NFS shared directory is successfully shared, then the user present in the NFS client machine can access or use this directory. Now there is a user on the NFS client is continuously using or accessing this NFS shared directory, and his shifts gets over or his working hours end. He logs out from the NFS client machine and stops using this shared directory. Now we can see that nobody is using this directory. Now AutoFS will comes into the picture. In AutoFS, there is a thing called timeout. So this timeout we will see later in this video when we are performing the hands-on, when we are doing configuring the AutoFS practically. For now, let's just understand or take it like this. If you have set this timeout for 30 seconds and no one is using this shared directory for those 30 seconds, then what AutoFS will do, AutoFS will automatically unmount this NFS shared directory from your NFS client machine. Now, when this user comes back again and logs in again to the NFS client machine and tries to access the NFS share, then again AutoFS will come into the picture and remounts the directory on the NFS client machine. So this is what AutoFS is. Basically, it mounts your NFS shared directory or your shared public shared directory whenever it is in use. So why we use AutoFS or what are the benefits? The very first benefit is it shortens the boot time. As there is a file in Linux etc fs tab, this file is used for permanent mounting whenever you want to make your mount points to be available after reboot as well. If you're not aware about this file, don't worry. In later in our other videos, we are going to discuss more about this fstep file. So in AutoFS case, we do not have to specify our mounts or our mount points on etc fs tab, because mounting will be taken care by AutoFS. So at the boot time, there will be no mount check, means at the boot time there will be no mounting for your NFS directory, so it automatically shortens your boot time. Second, it saves the system resources, as when the directory or NFS public share is not in use, the directory will not be mounted, then it will consume less memory on your system. At the last, it reduces the network traffic. As we have seen that NFS protocol or NFS shared directory, you share that directory over the network. So when network is involved, a continuous network connection should be maintained. If your directory of your mount point is mounted on the NFS client machine and shared with your NFS client machine from the NFS server, there is a network connection which is always maintained. But when we are using AutoFS and no one is using your directory, then the network connection will also be lost, as no one is using it and it is unmounted. So here, when the resources are not in use, AutoFS will unmount the directory and the network connection is also closed. So no network connection is maintained when the share is not in use. So that's it for the explanation of NFS and AutoFS. Let's just quickly jump into our Linux machine. So this is the Linux machine RHEL 10. I have two machines today. One I am going to treat as NFS server and one I am going to treat as NFS client. So I am going to log into my Linux machine. So let's just quickly open the terminal. I'm changing it to the root user. Okay, let's just check the IP of it first. I'm sorry, it is if config. So okay, for this 145 machine, I'm going to use this as an NFS server. So I'm going to set the host name for this hostname ctl command. I'm going to use to set the host name. So I'm giving it a name as NFS server. I think I should give hyphen instead. Okay, so it is showing me host name. Okay, I've done the spelling mistake here. Host name ctl out is fine. So my host name is set for this machine. Now I'm going to my second machine and I'm going to log into this machine also. And here also I'm going to set the host name and this I'm giving as NFS client. Let's use hyphen instead. Okay, so my host name is set. So instead of using my machines like virtual machines, you will get a better view if I will use another terminal. Like I use Terminus, I like it more than MobileXterm. So I am going to log into my machines from the Terminus. Okay, so this is my NFS server machine. If I will continue and I will give it as a root user. Done. Same I'm going to do for my client machine. So now here also I'm going to log in with root. Okay, if you will see, you can see the host name is NFS server, and if you will see here, host name is NFS client. Somehow the hyphen is missed here, but okay, it's fine. we are still able to understand it is our NFS server. It is just to differentiate so that it will be easier for us to differentiate our machines. So the very first thing we have to do is we have to install the NFS package. So I am using DNF command to install it, and this is the package name for NFS-utils. So now it will begin the installation on my NFS server. Let's just wait. Okay. Okay, so the installation is complete now. Let's just quickly check what is the status of the NFS service. So systemctl status NFS server. So NFS server is the daemon name for the NFS service. You can see the service is currently inactive and disabled. So we have to enable the service and make it active to use it. So with this single command only, I will be able to enable and make it active by using this -- now option. It is making changes. It is taking, I think, more time than usual, but it's fine. Let's just check the status of the service again. Status NFS server. Okay, so now our service is active and enabled. Now we are good. So the very first task we have to do after the installation, let's just create a shared directory first. The directory, the public share, which we are going to share with our NFS client. So I am giving it as a name as NFS server and public share. Let's just cross validate whether this created under MNT or not. You can see that this public share directory is created and the ownership is assigned to root, as I am logged into as a root user. So owner is root and the group owner is also root. So for NFS, we have to change it, the ownership of file ownership for the public share. This is for the security reasons, and in a bit you will get it. So we have to change the ownership to the user named as nobody user. So before changing the ownership, let's just see what this nobody user is. Okay, suppose you have NFS client and this NFS client have a user, and this user is logged in as a root user only. As in our case also, we are logged in as root user, and this NFS client is trying to access the NFS shared directory. For now, suppose the share is successfully made with NFS client, or this NFS client is trying to access the shared directory of NFS server, and this user present here is not trusted. Means NFS server is not able to recognize or trust this user. Whenever this user is trying to access this shared directory, he is somehow not able to verify this user. So what NFS server will do, if we have mapped the file ownership of that public shared directory, of this public shared directory, to nobody user, then for untrusted users, NFS server will interrupt this process when user is trying to access the shared directory, and maps this user to the nobody user. And this nobody user have very minimal permissions, like this user will not be able to delete, modify or read the content of the file. This nobody user have very minimal permission, and this is set because suppose if some user somehow gain the access towards the NFS server, but the NFS server shared directory is not able to authorize the user or verify the user, then this user, nobody user, so this user is mapped to nobody user, and when he is mapped to nobody user, he will not be able to make any harm to our NFS shared directory. So let's go back to our machine and first just validate or cross verify whether this nobody user is present in our machine or not, like it is created or not. So I'm going to grep it. In my machine, nobody user is already there. If in case in your machine nobody user is not there, so what you have to do, simply just use the user add command to add this user. But you have to make sure that the shell for this nobody user should be sbin no login. I have given it login. Let's just change it to no login. So this -s option is used to define a shell while creating or adding the user with user and command. So I have given the shell sbin no login. In my machine, this user is already exists. That's why it is popping up. Nobody user already exists. Okay, so the user is created. Now let's just change the ownership. So by using the chown command, I am going to change the file ownership and the group ownership to the nobody user. And what's the file? File is, I'm directly going to give the complete path for the file. Okay, so the ownership is changed. Let's just cross validate it. Sorry. So now you can see the ownership is changed to the nobody user, the group ownership and the ownership of the file. So now we have to, what we have to do, first we have to make this share available, and then we will share this shared directory, public shared directory to our NFS client. For that, we have to first make changes in NFS server configuration file, not NFS server configuration file, NFS configuration file. So there is a file etc exports. Under etc there is a file called exports. This is NFS configuration file, where you have to list all the public directories you want to share with the different clients. So the very first option we have to mention is the path that for the directory you want to share, and then the client IP with you want to share your public IP. So let's just quickly see our client IP. So my client NFS client IP is this. I'm going to copy paste it. Once done, I have to specify the share options as well. So let me just specify it, and I will make you understand these options in a bit. So root squash, done. So what are these options? Why I have specified these options? Let's just see it quickly. So the very first option, RW is the read write. The read write option, your shared will be shared as in the read write mode, basically the permission. Sync option, whatever file copied in your NFS server will be copied in your NFS client machine at the same time. Basically it synchronizes the write. Then these two options are for trusted and untrusted users. So the first option, no all squash, means the users, when we were discussing this point, so when we were discussing about nobody user, we have discussed that this user, in this case this user was untrusted user. We were not able to, the NFS server not able to verify this user. Suppose in this case now NFS server is able to verify this user and is a trusted user for NFS server, then we are going to use no all squash option, so that this user will be able to have the permissions defined for the NFS server shared directory. He will be able to use the same permissions for the directory. Suppose if you have a write access, he can write to the files of this directory as he is a trusted user. So this option, no all squash, will not map those users who are verified to nobody users. But what about the untrusted users? So if there is any untrusted users, like in this case we have seen he was a untrusted user, and this user was mapped to nobody user, and he gained the minimal permissions of this nobody user and not able to like fully access the files present under our NFS shared directory. For those untrusted users, we use the option root squash. If any untrusted user tries to access your public shared directory, will be mapped to the nobody user. So this is the reason we have changed it to nobody user, and we are using the root squash option. Okay, I have saved it successfully. So I have saved it now what we have to do, finally we are going to share our NFS share directory, this directory, to our NFS client. So do that, we are going to use the command export fs hyphen arv. So A is for all entries, all the entries mentioned in this export fs etc exports file will be shared to your client machine. R means re-export. Suppose there are some old entries also which you have already mentioned in your exports file, those also will be re-exported. And V means verbose. Whenever we run this command, it will show the output of it. So now we can see it is saying exporting. This is our client IP. So our public shared directory is successfully exported to our NFS client machine. The final step we have in our NFS server to set up is the firewall. We have to allow the NFS service in the firewall as well. So before allowing it, let's just check whether NFS service is already allowed in firewall or not. So to do that, I'm using firewall hyphen cmd hyphen list services. So you can see cockpit, DHCP and SSH, only these three services are allowed. So we have to allow our NFS services as well. There are three services which we allow to make NFS to work. So to do that, I'm going to use permanent hyphen permanent hyphen add service. The very first service is we have to allow is NFS. Okay, so this is the generic NFS traffic. It will allow the generic NFS traffic. The second service you have to, don't worry, I will explain why I am allowing this mount D and RPC bind. Like what is the significance, why we have to allow this mount D and RPC bind in firewall. So these services are allowed. So let's just reload the firewall and check. Yes, now we can see that this NFS server, NFS, RPC bind and mount D are allowed in our firewall, correct? So RPC bind, why we have allowed the RPC bind? When NFS client tries to connect to your NFS server, your NFS server first connects to the RPC bind. It connects to the RPC bind so that your NFS client will get or will discover the port number for the services available in the NFS server. So what RPC bind exactly is doing? RPC bind is telling the NFS client that this is the specific port number for NFS services like mount D and NFS. So if RPC bind will not be there, then NFS client will not be able to discover the port number and the connection will not be made. Mount D. Suppose you have NFS client and you are trying to mount your shared directory on NFS client. So what will happen? Mount D will first reach out to the etc exports file. Just right now, if we will go back here, we will see that we have set it up our etc export. Here we have set up the mount options, right? Share options which we want to share with NFS. Just right now we have set it up here. If you will see what this mount div will do, mount div will connect with etc exports, and this etc exports is available where? It is available in your server, in your NFS server. So if your client IP or your client details are present, means your client have permission to access your shared directory. If it is there, then mount D will automatically mount this to your NFS client. So for mounting, mount D is used. Okay. So this is done. Let's just go back again to our client machine. So this is the configuration we have done. So for our client machine, the configuration is done. Let's just quickly go back to for our server. For NFS server, we have done the configuration. Let's just go to our client machine, and in client machine, what you have to do. So the very first step is you have to make the installation for NFS. So I am going to do DNF install and NFS utils, the same package which we have installed in our NFS server. But here we have to configure AutoFS as well. So we have to download AutoFS package, as well as there is one more package which you have to install here, and the package name is NFS version 4 ACL tools. This is for access control list. Okay, so let it install. So this ACL tools is for managing the access control list in your Linux system, and this 4 is the version 4 or of NFS which is currently we are using in the environment. So it's installing. Okay, so the installation is complete. So let's just check the status for your NFS server. For your NFS server is the daemon for your NFS service. So the status is currently inactive. Let's just make it enable and active. So done. Okay, I have given it system CLT. Sorry, it is system CTL. It is done, I think. Yeah, it is done now. Okay, so the very first thing after the installation you have to do is, here also you have to create a directory for AutoFS. Okay, so for AutoFS mount, I am giving it as a name AutoFS mount. So the directory is created. So once the directory is created, now we are going to configure the AutoFS setup and giving the mount instruction. Before doing that, let's just quickly understand how this AutoFS configuration will work. So first you have to create a NFS shared directory in client as well, in an NFS client machine as well. Then we are going to create a file etc mount.txt. This file will contain the mount instructions. So when you create or when you want to use any directory, then you are whenever you want to use any directory, you mount that directory on a disk, right? You use etc for permanent mounting, or you just use mount -a so for a temporary mounting. So this file, and there also in etc file also you specify some mount options, correct? So here in the AutoFS case, what we have to do, we have to create a file. This mount.txt file is not available in the machine. You have to create it and here we have to specify the mount instructions, the mount options. So here we will specify the mount options, and then we will edit the main configuration file of AutoFS, and this AutoFS configuration file, we will specify this mount instructions file and this AutoFS mount file. So this configuration file will take all the instructions from these two files. So you will understand it better. Let's just first do it. Okay. So first I'm going to create this mount.txt file. So this mount.txt, what I have to specify first is in mount.txt, let's just first specify the name for the directory you want to give. Okay, I have to use the I option. Okay, so first you have to specify the name of the directory you want to give. Just give me a second. Okay, then you have to specify the option like read only, read write, whatever you want to give. Then let's just copy the path. Sorry, it is available here only. Let's just copy this path. This is the path for your shared directory, which is present, which we have created in your NFS server machine. Okay, so if first copy, first just mention the IP. So for IP, you can see over here in the top 168.54.145. So for my NFS server, I am mentioning the IP. So this is the IP, and the path I have given mnt NFS server public share. There is one slash was given. Sorry for that. Okay, so I'm going to save it. Okay, so this option I will let you know in some time. This public I have used here. Okay, just a second. I'm going to save this file. What happened? Okay, now it is fine. Let's just see that. Let's just cross validate it that they are getting saved. Yes, so it is saved successfully. Now we are going to edit our AutoFS configuration file, and the configuration file name for AutoFS is auto.master, and presented etc. Every configuration file is present there. So if you will go to this file, in the you have to go at the end of this file. So this is the end. The very first thing you have to specify is the name of the directory which you have created, the shared directory which you have created here in your NFS client. So I'm copying it and going back again, and simply I'm pasting it. Then I have to specify the mount instruction file name which I have created, etc mount.txt. Then if you remember in starting, we have discussed about timeout, that we have to specify or we have to give a timeout, correct? So this timeout, what we understood is that this timeout, whatever time we set, like here I have set 5 seconds. So if the directory is not, if anyone is not using that directory, or if it is not accessible, or anyone is not accessing that directory or NFS shared directory for 5 seconds, then after 5 seconds that directory will automatically be unmounted. Okay, so this is what timeout is. So I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to first check the status of my AutoFS service, which we haven't checked earlier, but it is fine, because if we will restart, or if it is not even active, we will start it again, it will take the configuration. You can see that it is inactive and disabled as of now. So let's just enable the service and make it active. The main thing, systemctl enable -- now flag I am using to perform both the actions at the same time, and it is AutoFS done. If you will check the status now, the service is active and enabled. I am going to restart. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, So I am going to restart my NFS service as well here. Restart, and the daemon, oh sorry, the spelling is not right. Restart NFS server. Done. So we have made the changes in configurations and all, that's why it is, yeah, so now it is restarted. Now let's just quickly go to your AutoFS directory which we have created, AutoFS mount. You can see there is nothing inside here, total item showing 0. So how we are going to check it? Before I am going to show you some magic over here. First I am going to show you why I have used that public option in our mount.txt file. In the our mount instructions files, I have used the option public over here, right? So this public is the directory name that AutoFS is going to mount in your shared directory which you have mentioned in your AutoFS configuration file. So if I will go back here again, and I will first check whether my NFS shared directory, my this directory is successfully, my this export is successfully mounted or shared to my NFS client or not. By using df-h command, I'm going to check. You can see nothing is mounted with nothing is mounted. Your this share is not yet mounted, but we have done our configurations, but it is not yet mounted. The reason, because the share, no one is using that share right now, that's why it is not. And the public option we have mentioned in the mount.txt, that public is nothing but just a directory under this AutoFS which is right now hidden. So let's just do the cd public. You can see you are inside the public, and earlier when we checked it, there was nothing in public, right? Okay, so if you will df-h now, you can see that our NFS share is now mounted on your NFS client machine. And once I will move back from this directory, I will go to some other directory. After some time, now if you will see, I am in my root directory, and after some time, I mentioned 5 seconds, the share is gone. So this is how AutoFS works. So whenever no one is using that mount point or your NFS share, this will simply unmount it. So it will consume less resources, and this is the complete configuration we have seen. And that's all for today. So I will see you in the next question which we are going to create for the RHCSA preparation on RHEL 10. Thank you for today. Have a nice day.